Hello, welcome to an episode of Race to 270 from yours truly, Political Stuff. Just to get a few things out of the way, it's important to me that these videos stay as unbiased as possible considering the topics underneath, at least from my perspective. Feel free to go crazy in the comments, but don't take any of my impressions on the state of the race in a context where they're not supposed to go. If I predict Biden to win Texas or Trump to take New York, these would obviously not be endorsements, only fleeting signs that I've lost a bit of brain matter in the last few weeks without my knowledge. These episodes of State of the Race are for the fun of the game and an appreciation for the numbers and game theory that is a result of the most surely intended, convoluted presidential election process in the first world. Now that we are 130 odd days away from the election and about a week out from the first non-party affiliated presidential debate in the last 4 years, let's get into the state of the race. As things stand right now, I do not expect Biden to perform as well as he did in 2020. But I could have told you as much 4 years ago. Southern states like Georgia and Arizona will not have the same pull on young voters, while voter enthusiasm as a whole will likely experience an incredible drop-off compared to that of COVID. 4 years ago, the election was very easy to predict if you were following the numbers and not getting distracted by media pundits spewing nonsense about Minnesota going red despite no poll ever suggesting anything of that nature. The only reason these claims were being made were due to the protests that sparked after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and how somehow this would alter the turnout, which as it turned out, no. Another big flaw with many election predictions in 2020 were that of secret Trump voters, a term that was coined to represent those not willing to admit the way they intend to vote to pollsters due to potential social embarrassment. This coinage was ignored in 2020 because many media outlets suggested that this was a cop-out excuse to account for many 2016 polls that underreported Trump voters by about 5%. But as it turned out, an error in Trump's favor by about 3% occurred in many states in 2020. Whether it's secret Trump voters or non-voters disguised as registered Democrats, who cares? The numbers don't lie. So let's start with the safe states. These are any state that is expected to hold a 15% or greater difference between Republican and Democratic vote share. Putting aside an attempted assassination or mini 9/11, these states are completely out of reach for a potential flip. Starting in the West, we have the entire coast going blue. These are states where Kennedy has a better chance than Trump does. We can also flip most of New England blue with the exception of New Hampshire and Maine, aside from its first district. New York, Maryland, and Delaware along with that, leaving Biden with 160 electoral votes that are damn near impossible for him to lose even if he shot Taylor Swift in the face on live television. Next, we're going to give Trump and the Republicans the majority of Middle America. Notice how at this point, Trump is now leading in states, but still trailing behind by almost 100 electoral votes. There's still quite a few states to give in the solid red column, and these are much more populous. Well, maybe not much more. Can't forget the districts of Nebraska and Maine, as they love to make things more complicated. Oh yeah, and the states that confuse the hell out of Europeans, and the state that's not a state. Anyway, Biden here is sitting at a 37-point lead that not even Kirko Chains could come back from. But the Reds have a trick up their sleeve in the likely column. If the solid states aren't flipping without a mini 9/11 or an assassination attempt, these states might flip in the event of a micro 9/11 or a staged assassination attempt. These are states like Texas, Ohio, and Florida, which all used to be swing states a millennia ago. For the Biden camp, New Mexico, Colorado, Jersey, Hampshire, and the Virgin Mainland. I'll also be throwing Minnesota in here because I feel like it, and this is my prediction. Oh yeah, and more districts to deal with.
These states.
Now this is the divisive part of the predictions where you're just going to have to sit there and take it because all of these states deserve a deep dive in their own individual videos. First, I believe Trump will be taking the rest of the Confederacy with relative ease. North Carolina hasn't been competitive for a while, and Georgia does not have any of the blue things going for it did in 2020. I'll also be leaning Michigan blue. The bleeding that the media expresses here due to Biden's handling of Israel does not represent anything beyond a lack of enthusiasm at this point in the race. The rest of these states are tilts, as they were in 2020. I don't expect either of these following states to be near as close this time around. I believe Nevada and Wisconsin will take some of the hardest hits from lack of blue enthusiasm compared to any other state in the union. However, there are two states that like to act red until the votes start showing up. In Pennsylvania, there is an expensive Senate race on the ballot, with Philly displaying a lot of pressure on the rest of the state when it comes to abortion. All the while, in Arizona, the abortion referendum, combined with a very unpopular Republican running for Senate, I'm expecting a near identical turnout to 4 years ago. By the narrowest of margins, we now have our winner.
Congratulations!
This is shaping up to be an incredibly close race overall. In the pure betting markets at this point, I would still predict Trump to win the election, as it is much more likely that the tilt in lean blue states tilt red by election day than vice versa. That being said, there's a lot of time left to go in this election cycle, so there will be a lot of predictions coming in the following weeks, after the first debate and after the former president's sentencing on July 11th. So if you'd like to see any of those, subscribe, stick around, and thanks for watching.